Raiders they're playing Tampa Bay and they'll be at home. Um, I'll go first on this one. So Tampa's been a streaky team. Sometimes they actually play really well, but for the most part they haven't been terribly good. And I do believe, like you said, the Raiders are on their way up. They may not have all the pieces on the field yet, but it's a home game. This is a game actually I don't think will be a ton of scoring, just because, like you say, the Raiders have offensive issues as far as quality of people on the field right now. Tampa is just the team going nowhere. Raiders 13-10.
Raiders 13-10. Yeah, you know what? I probably could get behind. I think I would actually go with your call.
Raiders 13-10. We're both on the board for the same thing.
And the thing about it too is that I happen to know someone who works for the Tampa organization, and the stories that have
Our one inside source.
yes, exactly, our one inside source. And I will in no way provide any actual details, but the things that I hear, it's going to be a long time before Tampa Bay becomes anything.
A contender again.
Yeah, it's sad. It really is sad because I was so happy for the John Gruden time period, and they're a long ways away from that.
Yep.
I mean, I saw them play last year against New Orleans, and actually, they were different and better last year than they were this year.
Yeah,
they've really fallen off the.
I don't think they've gelled as a unit on either side of the ball. Oh yeah. So welcome to Sportishness, and we are
Episode 2.
We're between weeks 9 and 10 now, so
What to do? It's episode number 2.
we'll be talking.
We'll be giving you absolutely nothing if you guess that reference.
Yes, that's true. So we'll talk about week 9 and what happened, our predictions, and also week 10, what we think is going to happen.
Yes, week 9.
Well, people can go to the website and.
Right,
We'll
exactly.
decide down here. Remember last week we weren't sure if it was going to be here or
Maybe we can
here.
show it there.
No, this is where the applause stuff for me is.
Right.
And other interesting things. So you did mention a jersey, but you didn't ask the right question.
Yes, which jersey?
What's the number?
Yes.
So that's Jay Cutler. Now, why would I be wearing a Jay Cutler Broncos jersey?
Why would he be wearing a Jay Cutler's
I'm glad
jersey?
you asked.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I thought you were never going to ask. Well, I might want to mention the Bears, 51-20.
51-20.
Yes, that's insane.
That is. I mean, they're not exactly a high-scoring offense.
No.
It's been a good thing that they've had a pretty decent defense because, if they hadn't, I'm not sure Cutler, could overwhelm, some high-scoring opponent. But,
it was just the Titans, but still, 51-20. When you see Brian Urlacher rolling down that field for 20th years, God bless him, he's an amazing athlete, but you see him catch an interception, roll it in for a touchdown, the Bears having a great day.
Right.
So anyway, the Bears.
Bears.
The reality is I can't find my Manning jersey because it's lost. So, honey, could you find my jersey? Where it is? It's driving me nuts. Although the Broncos have not lost a game since I lost that jersey. So if you're superstitious...
it needs to stay lost.
Right. Yes. Or somebody should buy me another jersey. And a press pass.
Right.
Yes.
And a press pass.
So I was thinking maybe this week, we spent a lot of time kind of getting up to speed last week. I was thinking maybe talk about our picks, wrap up week 9, talk about the games a little bit, and...
I hope you have those numbers handy on the picks.
I do.
How do we do?
All right, so the week 9 picks. Let's start them in the order we called them last week. We said Chargers versus the Chiefs. And you said the final score would be Chargers 21, Chiefs 14. I said the final score would be the Chargers 31, the Chiefs 13. And lo and behold, the score was 31-13. Applause. Look at all these people. They're just, look at that. That's
right.
That's all me back there. Oh, yes, right. But even you were close. You were only 9 points out, on the over and under completely. So, and even though the game didn't happen like I called it.
This is why I don't bet.
Yes. I said it was going to be a blowout in the first half, and then it would be, just garbage time in the second, but it wasn't.
Right.
So, but they did manage to run up the score. So that was good. I mean, at least we called the winners.
Well, actually, there was garbage time in the second. That fourth quarter was they let down quite a bit.
That's true.
Kansas City did, that is. Yeah.
So Broncos and Bengals. Actually, technically we're supposed to talk about the Tampa Bay Oakland game if we're going to go from the worst to the best teams, I guess. So Tampa Bay at Oakland, we actually completely blew this one. We both called 10-13, thinking that neither team could score or run or pass. And the reality was that was true for the entire first half. I think the halftime score was like 10-14 or something. We were like within a point, and all of a sudden Tampa Bay realized they could run the ball, and that was it. And then it turned into a rout. It was 41-22, I think, at the end, or somewhere around there.
Yeah. The final score 42-32.
42-32. Yeah.
Yeah, that. I think the biggest part, the biggest story there is the Raiders had Palmer actually had 39 of 61 passes. 61 pass plays. I mean, that's basically an offense with no rush.
That's true.
And of course, they only had 22 yards of rushing. Even in the pass-centric NFL, that much pass offense is not going to ever be successful.
And the Broncos and the Bengals, which was I said was 34-17, and you guessed around 40-21. Now we both kind of thought this was going to be an easy game. We thought the Bengals points would be kind of meaningless,
Right?
But the reality was that was a pretty tough fought game until pretty close at the end. The final score on that one was 31-23. So I was 7 points off. You were 7 points off. I was 3 points off. But again, even though we got the scores pretty close in 2 of the 3 games we called, none of the games actually went the way we thought they would.
Yeah, especially the Broncos game.
Yeah. So which one you want to jump into first? We got the
Actually, you know what? Let's do the garbage time with the other
Chargers
division
and
players.
Chiefs.
Yeah, Chargers and Chiefs. No mystery there. Really, no mystery there. I mean, Kansas City is so bad this year that maybe they would be the candidate to play a game against college
Steve
football
Spurrier's
teams.
college football team.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't imagine how bad that would be. I mean, people would be permanently injured.
What?
The
For calling
kids?
Kansas City? No, I know. But one bright spot has been Jamal Charles for Kansas City.
Yeah, he did pretty good.
And unfortunately, they thought he had a concussion. He was cleared of concussion. Of course, these days, what does that really mean, being cleared of a concussion? But, really, Kansas City, I think they're in danger of overusing their running back because they don't have any other part of their game. So this guy's career could be, unfortunately, shortened a great deal by being overplayed.
No, I watched the game and I was kind of scratching down some notes. And the thing about Kansas, is I realized pretty quickly, is that they had a really simple offensive scheme. If it was first down, they would almost always run.
Right.
If the yardage was short, after that, regardless of the down, they would run it. If the yardage was long, they would always pass it, and they would almost never play action the ball. So,
right.
First San Diego did come up pretty aggressive against the run because they knew that's really all KC could do. But I would say by the second quarter, San Diego realized that the formation the formation and package that KC was putting in, and the down and distance, decided to play almost without fail. And anytime it was first down or a short distance play, I was 7-8 guys in the box every play.
I think unfortunately San Diego overcomplicated it because if you look at the end of the third, the box score was 10-6. So basically, that 13-31, basically all the points that San Diego got was in the fourth quarter when apparently Kansas City thought they were going to win by 4 points, or maybe they were just getting tired. I don't know what happened. Anyway, enough of that game.
It wasn't a terribly interesting game. I mean, some of the things we did talk about happened. Phillip Rivers, the game was still close, and he threw that interception on that fade route to the corner that he should have never thrown it. It was so ironic because it was the third down on a three series of plays that was on the goal line.
Right.
And the first down, he had an opportunity to do the same thing. Actually, it was some guy crossing across the middle, and he decided to throw it away. And the announcer was all gushing about, what a mature decision that is. Phillip Rivers grown up, all of that kind of stuff. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, just give it like a play or two, because that one he let go, but he's not patient.
Right.
And sure enough, on the third down play, he just gave the ball away. Now, it ended up making no difference whatsoever, but it could have. I mean, that may have energized Kansas City. Actually, it didn't make a difference because the Kansas City did intercept it, so I take all that back. But it could have, you never know how the rest of the game's going to go. And that was another selfish pass by Philip Rivers. The only thing you can say about the Kansas City game is, in my mind, the only thing I get out of it is Norv Turner gets to keep his job for another week.
Yeah.
I mean, and Kansas City, I think, is
somebody's going to lose their job this year.
It's a race right now between those two teams. I mean, I don't know if you're going to disagree with me. I think the Chiefs are the worst team in the league.
It's hard to think. I mean, frankly,
Titans and Jags and those kinds of teams right now, but they are bad.
They are bad.
So.
Well, next the improvement of the Raiders and Bucks game.
Yeah, that was surprisingly good after a while. Do you want to start on that one? Or you want me to kick it?
No, you go for it.
All right, so
because I already kind of jumped in there early.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, I mean, the game was basically the first half was nothing but penalties. Neither team's offense really performing. So what ended up happening is because of the penalties, neither team could sustain a drive because they'd always end up in 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20, 3rd and 25, not because of bad plays that were run, it's because they couldn't get off the ball with, because of false starts and encroachments and holdings. I think I counted up, there were 11 penalties that I can remember from the first half alone. So nothing happened. It was an incredibly boring game. And in fact, the score at the half was almost exactly what we both had called.
Right.
Well, I think within a point of that. And then in the second half, all of a sudden, Tampa Bay comes out, and they just start doing these long runs. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Tampa Bay, but there were 3 very good runs that well schemed, well blocked. I mean, just a clinic on having linemen get to the second level to block out the linebackers, and then allowing the running back to spring free in space and having wide receivers and tight ends block out corners.
Right.
The 3 runs that he had the big gains on, the 60-plus yard plays that he ran those in on, all of those were clinic plays, but if you take those 3 plays away, just maybe he did break a few tackles. Let's say Oakland makes 3 tackles there.
Right.
The game is still ridiculously boring.
Right.
The only reason it opened up is because one team all of a sudden piled on a big lead, and the other team had to play catch up, and the game changed completely. In the first half, neither team could run. They just ran up the middle and fell on their face every time. There was nothing going on. Every second play was a penalty. The second half, it kind of opened. The third quarter was like the bomb fest. Both teams were just throwing these long bombs down on these flat routes, just time after time. There's one that the ball comes down and hits the defender on the helmet, and it makes it sound like the field goal thing, like a bong. And I'm like, maybe that was just in my head. I don't know.
Right.
Regardless, and I'm like,
it was probably in his head.
It's probably in my head. I'm sure it was in his head. So Tampa Bay did win. That was really a surprising one. I think we both picked Oakland to win on that one, not by much. But I think this also pretty much puts Oakland out of the running. That was one of the give-me games they had to have to keep running with Denver. And now that I think, you can't look too far ahead, but it makes it really difficult for them to climb past both San Diego and us.
Well, strangely enough, I look at the loss, and I say, well, I actually see more positives out of the Raiders' play than I did out of San Diego's play. So, I'm still in this paradigm of thinking of the Raiders as a team on the way up and San Diego on its way down to a long, bitter rebuilding over the next several years.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Carson Palmer, nobody's ever going to confuse Carson Palmer with, Brady or Montana or anybody like that. But you know what? He's a solid quarterback.
Sure.
He's I would say as solid as Jay Cutler, Maybe not quite Jay Cutler. I don't know.
I totally agree that Oakland can go up. I mean, one of the things that could happen consistently on the game for them, and actually ended up costing the game at the end, was Palmer was constantly throwing balls to places receivers, in his mind, were supposed to be. Now, I don't know who was wrong. I don't know if he had the wrong play, the receiver read the wrong route, whatever. But the half dozen passes just ditched out 30 yards from anybody.
Yeah.
But that's correctable. It's one of these things like you don't have to change personnel or coaches. You just have to get better at running.
Well, and in fact, they do need to change personnel because they need to buff up their receiving core. Well, so that's one of the reasons why I think that Carson Palmer is enough to anchor a team at the quarterback position. If they can draft in some better folks for some of their other key positions, like better a good wide receiver or two, maybe a good tight end, then they might be able to do something a little better.
Well, I mean, you could have Jerry Rice on the field.
Yeah.
And if the quarterback's throwing to the wrong spot of the field, I don't know if they get you much. But I hear you. I think they're definitely closer than the Chargers, who I think are, like we said last week, are kind of in their swan song. One thing I wanted to talk about was kind of funny was you mentioned this last week about the Chiefs and Crennel, that Crennel had over his door or somewhere, maybe in the locker room or something, a thing about what was it? Don't play bad football.
Yeah,
eliminate bad football. Wasn't that it?
I think that was it. Eliminate bad football.
Right, and. Man, they did not eliminate bad football. That was an ugly game for them, the KC. And I read afterwards that he had taken that sign down and has replaced it with play good football, because that's what's going to make the difference with the Chiefs. Not firing the offensive coordinator, who I swear I was writing my book like this is going to be a run, and it would be a run. If those trivia games you can play in bars. I would have made a lot of money if I thought the play, because
no sugar on the play then.
No, it was no mystery. I mean, it was just you knew everybody in the stadium knew what the play was going to be, and so of course they're going to fail a lot of times. You can't let the defense know that much about what you're doing. So Crennel or the offensive coordinators, you got to think they're going soon. I just don't know.
At this point in the season. I really just see no reason why the Broncos aren't going to take the division. I mean that's the bottom line. Sure. I mean, as Broncos fans, because we're partisans here. But I mean, unless they have a last half of the season, wheels come off the bus.
Right, a Shanahan collapse. A post Super Bowl Shanahan collapse where they just had to show up to the games with the right number of players, and they would have made it to the playoffs every year, but they just kept ditching out.
Well, I know one person we'll never have interviewed here is Mike Shanahan.
He's mean, man. I think he'd punch us out.
He probably would be.
He was like
you know what? I tell you what. Speaking of Shanahan, let's move on to those wonderful Broncos.
Yeah, let's get to the main subject of conversation.
Because I think the one thing that we really agree on here is that was a completely unexpected game. I had no idea that Cincinnati had that kind of game. I'd never seen their quarterback play. Their quarterback was amazing.
I've been waiting to say this since this game ended. Newman!
Yes, Newman.
That guy almost single-handedly took the game away from us.
That's true.
He picked Manning twice. Now, the game taketh and the game giveth. He also got a pass interference on a critical play in the end zone that moved the ball to the 1 yard line and allowed us to do the go ahead score. But the Bengals defense was surprisingly good.
I really saw probably I think one of those balanced games of the year. I would not say that the Broncos overall played their best game of the year, but it was certainly a competent performance. And Cincinnati, they exceeded my expectations. So basically, what I saw was the ebb and flow of fortunes from two teams having a good day playing each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I can't say, oh, wow, somebody just really fell apart. No, nobody fell apart. Yeah, okay, Manning had a couple interceptions, right? I think that the Bengals finally have gotten lucky and gotten themselves a quarterback. Well, of course, based on one game, I can say with authority that the Bengals now have, their quarterback issues solved for a while.
I will say he was. We watched this game at the same time, and something you kept saying over and over again is, "Man, that guy certainly is confident."
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes to the point, and towards the end of the game, I did manage to burn him a few times when he had to throw. I mean, it was no mystery again. When the offense has to run certain plays or is consistently running plays, the defense knows about.
Right.
The game gets a lot harder. I thought he did a pretty good job, and I certainly think he's. If you had to put him among the quarterbacks in the AFC West, gets you the 4 starters, he's underneath Manning right now.
There are certain positions in each major professional sport that is defined by the need for a certain level of confidence or ego. Quarterback in the NFL, goalie in the NHL. probably pitchers in baseball, although I don't really like baseball.
The centerpiece guy, the guy.
Yeah, exactly. And so in a way, half their game is really a mental game of how prepared are they for the game, how how much they believe in their ability to get the job done. And you know what? Hey, Dalton showed that he believed in his ability to get the job done, and he did. He had the arm strength, he had the accuracy, he had the ability to read plays. I was impressed. I mean, there were even a couple of moments in the game where he looked a little Manning-like, the way he was adjusting the play on the line.
Let's not get.
Yeah, let's not get.
Let's say he looked Cutler-like. Well, you know what? I will agree with you to a certain extent. At the start of the game, the Broncos defense gave him no respect at all. Every time he threw the ball, they would cut underneath the route.
Right.
They just, even if they were in single coverage and had no safety help, they were going for the pick every time. And here's the thing. If the Broncos defense had caught half the balls that literally ended up in their lap, that game would not have been close.
That's true.
So Dalton got let off the hook a bunch in the first half.
In fact, by my count, there were five places where the Broncos defender was in a better position than the Bengals receiver to get the ball.
Now, having said all of that, Dalton kept playing with what he had, and by the second half, that defense was backing off of him because he was starting to make completions and making the Denver defense look bad.
Right.
To the point where they had to start backing out of blitzing him all the time, of jumping routes on the cover. Because I think one of their first touchdowns was a double move. It's like, okay, you want to keep jumping my route? Fine. Oh, I'm not there anymore. I'm all the way in the end zone. I just caught a touchdown. That was dumb of you.
Right.
AJ Feely and those guys. So,
well, I tell you what, it certainly made me a lot more cautious to, take some of the bottom feeding teams and assume that we're going to, beat them like a drum through the rest of our schedule.
Now, statistically, at this point, we have the easiest schedule in the league to
Right.
finish out. And that's based on the number of wins and losses right now. We basically play a lot of teams that right now are charitably could said to be struggling, when in reality some of these guys just aren't going to, they're just not in contention this year at all.
Right. By the way, some other things I want to say notably about some notable things I'd like to say, about the Broncos game on the Broncos
What would you like to
side.
say notably?
Yes, notably. I thought that opening series of both the opening defensive series and then the following offensive series by the Broncos was about the prettiest opening I've seen in probably 10 years.
Okay.
I mean, it was beautiful. Just all cylinders were firing.
Well, except for the McGahee running into the invisible brick wall thing.
But that wasn't in the first series.
That wasn't?
No.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't. Another thing I'd like to say is those guys that are filling in on cornerback for Porter, like Harris. Those guys are really doing a hell of a job.
Absolutely, yeah. That was, without Porter, our secondary really did do a stand-up job.
I mean, I really have to say, I think poor Porter is probably anxious to get back so that he has a chance to keep his job because, all of a sudden it's looking like there's a depth chart contention issue there.
Well, they say you're not supposed to lose your job to injury, but it's not always true.
That's not this league. But, in particular, Harris, he broke up some passes. But the thing that really impressed me was the way he came on. I think it was sometime in the second quarter. I wish I'd noted it down. But he came in on a run play and was basically the decisive person to in that run play. So I thought it was great the way he was playing both the run and the pass. Sometimes you see corners and safeties, think that their only job is really on, on pass defense, unless they're the last person to the end zone.
No.
But that wasn't the situation here. I mean, Harris got up there and made a really powerful tackle. So good job to him. Their goal line defense was pretty incredible in the first half. Thomas, pine tar in the hands. 2 drop passes, dude. I love you. I've loved you since the day that you got drafted. But the number of drop passes that you've had this year on passes that you should catch.
Yeah.
You are a great receiver. But those drop passes are killing you, dude.
He's your fan club president, so don't.
That's right.
On a lighter note, when when he did drop that first pass, the cutaway shot to Manning was priceless because
Yeah.
it's one of those Manning moments where he's like, like, he's trying to be nice about it, but you can tell he just wants to march down and rip the helmet off.
But on the other side of it is, once again, I'm just stunned and amazed with how fortunate we are to have Thomas and Decker and Tammy and geez Louise, my brain just went blank.
The other tight end. Well, I want to talk about that a little bit because you've been advocating a bigger role for tight ends, and they did have some key plays.
Absolutely, especially they really started in my mind being noticed or having an impact on the game in the second half. They're and it's just deadly. I mean, when you can have that tight end receiving mix in there. Because it seems like tight end routes generally tend to be short routes. I mean, would you agree with that?
It depends on the time. You get Shannon Sharp, the guy could haul ass down the field, but
Sure.
Generally, yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, they're the underneath guys, and when they're a check down option, I mean, that's a great thing. But when it's a planned thing and you got all that sugar on the wide receivers, or maybe you're throwing one of those things where everybody's thinking that you've got a big wide receiver set, but you also have halfback in the backfield, and so they're thinking that maybe you're trying to do a run play, and then all of a sudden the tight end is your primary receiver. I mean, great things happen,
Sure.
and those are the kinds of things that I think are really starting to open up for the Broncos in a way that they haven't since back to the Elway days with Shannon Sharp and whatnot. So, yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, I thought, it's one of these games where I think even Denver won in finally saying, okay, now we got an easy one. We can just knock this one out of the park. Because defensively, Jack Del Rio wasn't messing around. And last week I complained that they tend to show up for football games with the wrong plan.
Right.
This week I think they showed up with the right plan. Hey, we've got a quarterback of doubtful quality.
Right.
Go after him until he makes you stop.
Right.
And the Denver defense got some legitimate pressure on him pretty much all throughout the game, but definitely early on.
Right.
They were making him throw before he wanted to, keeping him from stepping up, and the mistakes he did make late in the game were due specifically to the fact that he was under a lot of pressure.
Right.
So kudos to the defense. I know, like you said, we're hurting a couple places. We know we're missing Porter. We're missing one of our linebackers. We're missing definitely some quality secondary guys right now. So we're playing short, and we're doing pretty well with that, and I think the defense can be pretty proud of that. The offense, I think, just did a businessman-like job this time getting it all done. I guess the only thing that I would have, I don't know if it's really a complaint, and I think I saw this a little differently than you did, was the McGahee situation, or the running situation.
Oh, yeah.
So a
that's
couple
right.
things.
Thank
One
you.
is they never stopped using him. And
Well, they have a lot of
while-
confidence in him. I mean, that's the bottom line.
They do, but you got to give the guy a break. It's a long season, and you don't want to. If you're not having a lot of luck with somebody, it's pretty traditional in the NFL to try out your other back.
Yeah, they've got Hillis and Ball, and they really do need to get him rotated.
Sure.
Both of them rotated.
Hey,
in.
if the power guy, the guy who can churn his feet, is running into a wall, people that he can't get through, try the speed guy. Every team in the league does that. That's pretty old hat now. So I don't know why they didn't go that route. But also, and I think that we had a bit of a disagreement with this when we saw the game, is I felt like McGahee wasn't breaking any tackles. Yeah, he was getting caught up early, but McGahee traditionally can churn his feet and punch out a couple extra yards. Where I felt this game, the first time he contacted anybody, it was a Marino moment. He would just go straight down.
Yeah.
And yes, the offense. Well, let me finish up.
Sorry.
If you don't mind. Yes, the offensive line was not getting to the second level, so the runs were getting hit at the line of scrimmage. But McGahee traditionally has been able to get 2, 3, 4 yards in that situation, and he was getting 0, 0, 0, -1, 0 pretty consistently. He wasn't getting anything going. Now, is the offensive line to blame? Absolutely. Was McGahee not at 100%? I don't know, but his production in that game, except for one really critical play, wasn't there.
Well, usually the reason why I was focused on the offensive line as a source of the problem, because I do agree that it seems like McGahee wasn't 100%. But the reason why I was focused on the offensive line is that normally when he starts breaking a tackle, it's like when he's getting ready to make his second stride past penetrating through the the line, not through the gap.
There's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm going to let this one go.
Right.
Anyway.
But usually if he's facing a lot of headwinds from a strong defense, it's going to be just on the defensive side of the gap.
Sure.
I mean, inches, 6 inches into the defensive side. The thing about it is he was getting cut down 6 inches on the offensive side. And so it just seemed like the breaks weren't happening for them. Like that Bengals 4-3 defense was doing a good job of really stuffing the.
Oh, they did.
O-line.
They did a great job. They shut them down. So I mean that the running game wasn't very successful for the Broncos. I mean, and in fact, the only time it was to me was the play of the game, and I felt it was. I mean, I remember circling my notebook and I put like play of the game on it because it was. From all aspects of the football, from the metagame of package and formation
Right.
down to play, and on down and distance situation and time, from the coaches level down to the field level of actually getting the players in the right place and then actually running the play was perfect. And it was the one play I think McGahee got more than 5 yards rushing. I mean, he had just such a horrible day. It was that 3rd and 2 late in the game where the Broncos put in a 4 wide receiver, 1 tailback package, no tight ends. And then they spread the wide receivers out wide, one guy slot, of course, on each side, but they have them way out. They have them to the corners of the field,
Right.
And it forces the Bengals to go into a dime, to because there's nothing but speed on the field, and secondly, it spreads them way out. The defense has got to get because it's only a 3rd and 2,
Right.
So it's not like the cornerbacks can play to the shade to the slot side and then kind of fade out to the corners after the play, like it was a long yardage situation. It was trivial. Any slant route that was played soft was an automatic first down.
Right.
And what do? They run it, and there's nobody in the middle of the field because everybody, safeties and corners, are all on the edges,
Right.
and the only people in the middle are the down linemen and the one linebacker that was left. And yeah, they ran it for I think 12 yards. They ran it from the 17 of the Bengals down to the 5, and it was first down.
Right.
And that set the stage for that pass interference from Newman and eventually the touchdown.
Right. Well, clearly something happened in the last third of the game. Because and I think part of it was play calling, but to me there's still a mystery actually. What changed? Play calling. I think that there were some better matchups in terms of the offensive set to the defensive set, but I wonder if the Bengals defense was starting to get tired too.
Well, the announcer said that, but I just simply didn't believe it because why? When we went back to running. We got shut down again.
The thing about it though is that in that last third of the game, let's see, I think McGahee finished up with like 66 yards or something like that through the first 2/3 of the game. He only had like I think 15 to 20 positive yards.
Okay.
So basically, it was that last third of the game that he got the other 40 yards.
Right.
So
you take 12 off on one run. That's 28 yards left in the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So it's really not.
Still, his yard per average in that last third was better than.
Sure.
Anyway.
So statistically, it looks great, but the reality is that they couldn't use McGahee to convert first downs.
No, they couldn't.
And except from that one thing. And again, the announcer was jumping up and down about, well, you just keep leaning on when you wear them out. That wasn't what it was at all. It was a complete mismatch of power. They just simply, if the Broncos had, say, come out with an I formation and the defense had stacked inside with enough linebackers, that the same thing probably would have happened. I don't know why you would expect a different result running up the middle against a team that stuffed you all day.
Right.
The thing that made that play work is that they took basically 6 of the 11 defenders out of the box.
Right.
And with only 5 left, 5 guys on offense hike the ball and 1 guy's running it. Well, all of a sudden it's even Stevens.
Right.
And the person who tackles him was the safety because the Broncos came out and single man on helmet, 5 on 5, locked up everybody at the line of scrimmage. Like I said, so for me it was a perfect play because the metagame of having the right call in to give McGahee the best chance for success, it was perfect. You couldn't have done it on a 3rd and 10. Nobody would have bit off on the run. You just couldn't have run it far enough. People would have closed in on it. Because it was short yardage, they had to respect those receivers, and that's forced them into a dime package.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, thinking about actually next week's game so that we can keep this under an hour and 45 minutes.
What? All right. So, well, wait. There's one thing I want to finish up on, and this I've grown up all my life. This is one of those things when you watch enough football, it's like one of these kind of wacky little sports moments, the highlights.
Right.
It's kind of the bloopers reel of of the weird things that aren't supposed to show up on camera, but always seem like they do. It seems like any time that on the sideline, the league or the network puts a camera on the sideline, there's always some guy doing a farmer snot or his finger up to his brain. But I think the classic was they're looking at John Fox for some reason, and Woodard is in the shot from like here down. And he just reaches down and it's just adjusting himself. He's like got a leg up, getting everything to reset. And there's just kind of a moment of silence from the announcers, and they eventually cut away. But that kind of stuff makes me laugh every time because I hate to say it, but given the number of cameras they have and the delay and the people that there's like a director who runs the cameras.
It's not an accident.
It's like I think they get bored sometimes and they just do stuff like that. Like, oh, that guy's got his finger up his nose. Let's cut to him real quick. Let's make the announcers
Wardrobe
dance.
malfunction.
Wardrobe malfunction. So guys, keep on doing that. It's so funny. All right, let's go down to the pick. So this week, actually, the AFC West is not playing at home at all this week. Everything we're doing is away. So from the bottom of the pile up, Kansas City at Pittsburgh.
Well, I'll start out. This week I actually wrote down my predictions here.
And I didn't, though. I didn't. Can I Tebow something?
Here, I don't need the pencil.
Okay. So Tebow pass. That's the 1 in 100 that actually gets right. Then that's the other 1 in 100. That's the 99% right there, folks.
All right. I'm calling this game 14-27.
That close.
Yes.
The anemic Chiefs.
The anemic Chiefs.
Who don't have a quarterback. They would be starting Quinn if he didn't have a concussion. They might still start him. They might stick his helmet on the field and hope it does well.
Well, you know what? I would have given them a lower score, except for the fact that their running back, Jamal Charles, was cleared of a concussion. And his running back skills put him have put Kansas City at number 3 in the lead on the rush. Pittsburgh's rush defense is not all that great. So okay. I'm thinking that they might be able to break something loose. Okay. I think that there's a possibility too that the Roethlisberger, of course, I don't think much of that guy. I think that it's possible that they could play down to their opponent.
All right. Well, I'm going to use my veto power and call this the worst pick of the week. No, I'm just kidding. That's if Jamal Charles can chew up some yards against the Steelers, whose defense is not at 100% right now, then yeah, I think that's not impossible. It's an away game. It's in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense is finally kind of getting itself together in a Todd Haley, some new offensive scheme. It's taken a while to settle down, and I think they have. The defense is actually starting to do a lot better. Statistically, they're probably not great, but the last few games I've seen them play, they're really starting to tighten up.
Yeah.
I would say 31-3 Pittsburgh.
31-3.
31-3. I think that 3 might come on like a Roethlisberger sack fumble kind of thing or some sort of Roethlisberger pick, but I don't see KC's offensive line stopping anything. And quite frankly, I think Roethlisberger is just gonna just pass him to death. I don't really think the KC has much of a chance on either side.
Obviously, I think that the key to this game is going to be whether or not Pittsburgh plays down to their opponent.
Yeah, that's true. It's a home game, and it's hard to play there.
Yeah.
So that's a place they traditionally play well. Yeah, I don't. Well, and as one thing, Kansas City, I think, will be number 1 and will maintain its number 1 rating all the way till next year.
For the draft.
Yes. You might catch on to that one pretty quickly. Well, what can I say? What can you say about a 1-7 team?
Yeah, what can you say?
I guess you can say they
1-7?
won 1. All right, so next up would be the Raiders at Baltimore.
Raiders of Baltimore. I'm actually going to call that a really close game.
Okay.
I'm calling it at 21-24.
21-24. Anything else to say on top of that, or?
Yeah, actually, I think that it's a case where Baltimore's 22nd ranked pass defense and 28th ranked rush defense might not match up terribly well against Oakland. I think Carson Palmer is having to pass so much that that he could possibly bring them over the top.
Okay. All right, I can see that.
And also Baltimore had that nasty 9-6 win against Kansas City.
That's true.
I mean, They're kind of struggling this year.
Okay, so I'll start off on that aspect. Baltimore can be flaky, especially with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco keeps talking about what a great quarterback he is, but he is some days, and some days he's not.
Right.
He shows sign of brilliance, and some days he is not very good. But the reality is that the Raiders stink, and they can't stop the run. I mean, Tampa Bay would clearly line up and running. It's like, hey, that's number 22. He's running for 170 yards. Maybe we should look at that guy. And they would put everybody they had in the box. They put the coach in there, cheerleaders, a couple of those fans they have with all the stuff they lay on, and he would still blaze right through them.
Right.
They just can't stop the run. You know who Baltimore has? Ray Rice. You know what we're going to see? 200 yards from Ray Rice. And it's not. I don't think it's going to be an incredibly high-scoring game because Baltimore's just going to try to keep it on the ground as much as they can until Oakland makes them stop.
Mm-hmm.
But I foresee Carson Palmer still throwing to a lot of empty spots on the field. I don't think that offense is clicking yet. Now, in the Raiders game that they played, there were a couple times where he threw balls when the receivers were on the same page of music. I saw him throw this ball to Bay that Bay was running along, and he just kind of had to stick his arm out like this, and the ball just ended up clunking down to his hand, and he just did this, and he got hit out of bounds.
Right.
But it was like it literally could not be passed any better. It's
Right.
like the quarterback didn't have to reach for it; it just fell in his pocket, and he could have kept on running. But half the game was, oh look, Carlson Palmer threw it to the 30-yard line, and there's nobody within 20 yards of the 30-yard line.
Right.
So I don't think they've got an offense. I don't think they can stop the run on defense because Baltimore will run it a lot, and even though the Baltimore defense without Ray Lewis isn't nearly as good, they're still plenty good.
Well, I would like to point out, by the way, that I picked 24 on the off chance that they would be kicking 8 field goals, Baltimore.
Wow. All right, so I will stop. I'll stop stalling and say 27-6 Baltimore.
Okay.
So now I have 2 AFC West teams not being able to summon up one single touchdown between them.
Wow.
That's definitely that's a. All right, so San Diego,
yeah.
at Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This is a case where I actually I think that we can expect Phillip Rivers to do as well as Carson Palmer against Tampa Bay. I think, however, that Tampa Bay, I feel a little more certain this time, that Tampa Bay will be able to put together a run and pass package against San Diego like they did against Oakland. In fact, I see this being virtually kind of the same game.
Okay.
So I'm calling 34-37 with San Diego on the losing end, the 34 end.
Okay.
34-37.
All right, so this will actually be the first time that we've actually called a game where we don't agree about the winner. I don't think either team's very good. But Tampa Bay did show they could do some things. But I still think. Good.
Well, sorry, I forgot to add one of the key things in my reasoning here is Tampa Bay's 32nd rated pass defense. And I think Phillip Rivers right now is motivated. Phillip Rivers has a tendency to be streaky. You know,
absolutely.
He's gone through. He
that
had a string of
the Chargers.
Exactly. So he's had a streak of terrible.
Right.
And now he's going to have a streak of good. Is what I'm saying.
Okay. That's kind of why I'm going to pick the Chargers to win. I think they've been having a time of it, and it seems like anytime people's jobs are threatened, all of a sudden the organization starts doing better. And they've stunk lately, and Tampa Bay, I keep picking on them week after week, but I don't think they're very good. So, but I think this might be a shootout. So like 24-21?
24-21, okay.
Something like that. I mean, it might be an interesting game, and having the Chargers take one away, because I think the Chargers also realize that if they lose this game, like the Raiders, it's just the gap is getting too big to start to be realistic about catching up.
Well, you'll notice. I mean, I've predicted that all our 3 opponents in the division are all going to lose. I mean, I really see the gap starting to grow at this point in the season.
Fair enough. I guess Phillip Rivers, though, selfishness. That's the wild card here. That's like the same problem I have like looking at the Cowboys and saying, well, are they going to win or lose this week? I don't know. Is Tony Romo going to play a solid game, or is he going to be Tony Romo and do crazy things? So if Phillip Rivers has one of his selfish games, it's a disaster, and it's a huge blowout. If he plays well, which he's definitely capable of doing, then 24-21 seems pretty reasonable.
I had to go out and do some reading on Carolina because I somehow had missed every piece of news.
You should have come to me. Would you like me to summarize in one simple word?
Well, yes, suck. Right.
Sorry,
Thank you,
guys.
Thank you, Archie Bunker. That's what that reminded me of. That was Archie Bunker right there. I'm going 35-20 on this game. One of the things I've learned about watching Manning is that you can tell he's in the groove when he starts ordering the team around. When he doesn't feel like he's in his groove, when he's trying to play at being Manning instead of being Manning, then he's not. Then he's a lot quieter on the field. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, that I think was the worst thing I could say about the Cincinnati game. He didn't seem like he was completely in the groove. He wasn't being the on-field quarterback, except maybe towards the end when that score started getting awfully close, and he needed to bring it to a positive conclusion. There's a real tendency with Carolina. I mean, everything I've read is that Carolina stinks. In fact, Carolina stinks so bad that there's even talk of Carolina being moved out of Charlotte.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I know. What's going to come of that, I don't know. But they're having a very, very, very bad time of it. But there's also an indication that some of their losses haven't been quite so tragic as they might appear from just reading box scores. So I think that there may be 20 points worth of tricks up their sleeve.
Okay.
Plus, I'm still not sold on the idea that Jack Del Rio and the defense have the problem of stuffing the run solved. So I think it's possible that Carolina could maybe ramble out a point or two on the ground.
Okay, I think that's that's all reasonable. I think, from my perspective, what I see is it's John Fox is going back to Carolina. So right
revenge
there,
tour, yeah.
There's definitely a revenge factor.
He claims there isn't.
Oh, please, right? The Panthers, unfortunately, are pretty bad right now, and there's not a lot of good things to say about them at this point at all. So I think the Broncos should have a pretty easy go of this one. I think the only X factor is stopping the run, and they are playing, Cam Newton. So you gotta watch how that guy get outside. So I'm gonna predict the score, and I'm gonna predict what Cam Newton will do in the press conference.
Okay.
All right. So the score, let's say 34-17, maybe. Broncos. Okay. I think the Broncos should probably pretty much walk away with this one. So
yeah, and Cam Newton is pretty mobile too. So
yes, and that's the thing. When I said stopping the run, I kind of meant more about Cam Newton than anything, because he's the X factor in the game. When he's on, he's crazy good. But the season's getting on.
He's a better Tebow than Tebow.
Yeah, he can actually throw good balls. I mean, so. I think it's any other worthy league news that we're talking about. I mean, the Bears blowout was pretty great. Oh, here's something. We were reading today that the NFL fined a player for doing the flop. That is awesome. $30,000. For pretending to be hurt in between plays to slow the game down.
Yeah, I missed that one. That's pretty funny.
It's hilarious. I always wondered if that was really legal. So, but I guess the league will take a look at it. So what about where we at with standings right now? So the Broncos are 2 games up, right?
Yes.
And at this point, my brain just locked up. I'm sorry. The Chargers are 2 back, and then the Raiders are 1 behind that, and then, of course, the Chiefs are like 400 games behind. I mean,
right.
They're statistically out of it at this point. So we're looking at the rest of the league. Last week the NFL as a whole had more losers than winners. This week week 9 kind of changed that a little bit, but we're still obviously in contention for 4th automatically because of a division win.
Right.
So that's what we're still going for, but we have the easiest schedule in the league right now. So there's no reason that 2 spots out of reach. I think the 1 spot might be difficult because we've already lost a few games, but I think the 2 spot is most certainly something that we could go for.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're not playing for we're playing for a first round bye.
Yes, that would be great.
Maybe I need to change my prediction for Oakland to actually beat Baltimore, because then that would slide them down in the standards, because Baltimore's ahead of New England. Yeah, but that's not happening. That's not happening.
That's a lot of wishful thinking.
Yes, it is wishful. Well, I think that kind of brings our
right.
weekly news.
Yeah, I think so.
To a close.
We did pretty good on picks last week. We picked 3 games only because 2 of the division teams were playing each other. We got 2 out of 3 right, actually with pretty close scores, and the last one we completely borked up. But if they'd stopped playing at the half, we would have been right.
And so we'll provide a graphic right about here that will show our picks.
Yeah.
All right.
We're done.
Well, you guys have a great weekend and enjoy football.
Yes. Jonathan? Let's start with the Chiefs and the Bengals. We'll start from the bottom, work our way up. So I don't think this one's going to be a mystery. Actually, this is a tale of 2 teams that are on completely different trajectories. We didn't think of much of the Bengals 2 weeks ago,
Right.
but they have played their hearts out, and they're actually playing very good football right now.
Well, I mean, they just took apart the Giants. So.
Yeah, they humiliated the Giants. They're playing well on both sides of the ball. Right now, they look bad at the start of the season. They're looking very good right now. The Chiefs have fallen to the bottom. I don't think there's a lot of mystery here. I mean, the Chiefs did play a tough game against the Steelers, but
They did.
The same old problems. Penalties, inability to convert third downs, a quarterback who the coaching staff doesn't trust to pass the ball.
Right.
The only bright spot they have is Jamal Charles, and again, once you're one-dimensional either way, it's easy for teams to load up on you. So I don't spend a lot of time on this, but personally, I'm going to say Bengals 27-13.
27-13. Okay. Wow. We're pretty close on this. I'm saying that Kansas City is going to be able to net 16. I'm thinking that they're going to get at least a touchdown out of Jamal Charles, and that he'll be able to drag them close enough to be able to get some kicks.
So you see you're calling it 27-16?
I'm saying 28-16.
28-16.
Yeah,
Okay.
I see Cincinnati being able to drill in for 4 touchdowns.
Okay, fair enough.
And the real thing is Jamal Charles against the 20th ranked rush defense. I mean, okay, of course that's compiled up for the season. I think that Cincinnati's rush defense has been better, but still they're 20th ranked. And Dalton is going against the 8th pass defense, which is kind of surprising that Kansas City is the number 8 pass defense. It's not all bad news for Kansas City.
Right.
But Dalton, you know what? I have gained a lot of respect for Dalton.
Chargers versus the Ravens, and I think this game actually might be a little bit closer than a lot of people think. I think a lot of people saying the Chargers are in complete disarray, the Ravens are going to stomp them. But the reality in my mind right now is both the Chargers and the Ravens have very inconsistent quarterbacks who can be selfish at times. They're not playing well offensively in general. So because of the selfishness issue, Flacco and Rivers, you never can tell what they're going to do.
Right.
It's hard to tell offensively which one is better any given week. It's really hard, even with statistics. I can't figure that out. Defensively, I think the Ravens are a much better team. But the Chargers showed last week against the Broncos that they can step it up when they have to.
Mm-hmm.
So while the Ravens tend to play reasonably consistent defense, the Chargers, statistically, they're at the bottom of the pile when it comes to defense. Last week showed up and all of a sudden made it a game. They scored 9 points on us last week. But the Chargers don't have a healthy offensive line. They've got too many substitutions. They have second string, third string players playing out of position, completely, guards playing center, that kind of thing.
Right.
I think ultimately that's what gives this game the edge. I think Baltimore does win by a pretty hefty score, but I think this game will be reasonably tight till the end. I'm saying Baltimore 31 and the Chargers 17.
I see Baltimore giving Phillip Rivers fits.
I don't disagree.
I think that they're going to be in the backfield in the pocket with him the whole game, and I think they're going to tend to be very, very aggressive against him. I mean, basically, we've shown twice this year, the Broncos have shown twice this year, that a hyper-aggressive defense can actually work well.
It just destroyed Rivers. And again,
Right.
that wasn't his fault, but
Right. So the thing about it is that I really see Baltimore having Phillip Rivers on his heels. However, I also see San Diego piling up 20 points.
no. Okay, so what do you got there?
And Baltimore, I see doing 24 points.
Wow.
See, now, I probably spent a good 20 minutes to half an hour researching Baltimore a little bit more to try to get a better sense of how many points to give these guys. Because, on one hand, they can win a 10-9 game.
Yes. 13-10, that
Or
kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. Sure. But on the other hand, they piled up 55 points against Oakland.
Yes.
So I don't know which team is going to show up.
Right, exactly.
So basically, I said that this is going to be a grindy fest, and with but primarily a defensive struggle with just little chinks in the armor, defensive armor, allowing the other teams to pile up 20 and 24 points.
Okay, so basically you want with the defense the offenses will be erratic enough that the defenses will shut them down. And I was kind of in the same thing, but figured the Chargers tend to collapse when things start going against them. So I gave them a couple extra touchdowns.
As a matter of fact, somewhere around I heard that the Chargers have allowed the most points in the league right now in the fourth quarter or something like that.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's
A
pretty
Denver
bad.
game, of course, skews that statistic pretty horribly.
Yes, it does. This week on Snap Judgment, who will win? Panthers at Chiefs, Browns at Raiders, Bengals at Chargers, Buccaneers at Broncos, and for 30 shekels, which quarterback is most likely to be intercepted even if he's throwing in the towel?
Panthers, Raiders, Bengals, Broncos, Tony Romo. Back to you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
I think it's a take.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 6 of Sportishness.
Between weeks 13 and 14. Week
Between-
13 is wrapped up, and we're starting week 14 tomorrow, actually, with the Broncos game.
That's right. We had a little extra thing to think about this week. We need a little extra preparation. So, well, basically, because we, things are now locked up in the AFC West, we've decided we're going to change the format up a little bit through the balance of the season. But first, let's talk about those the wins for the.
Sure, just to wrap up what we've been doing all season, going over the picks. Last week we had the Chiefs versus the Panthers. You called that one at Chiefs 19, Panthers 14. I said Chiefs 17, 14. The final was actually 27-21, so a yes and a yes, I think, on that one. We were only off by a little bit.
And also, let's take a moment of silence for Kansas City. Horrible tragedy. And I mean, there has been miles of stuff said about how horrible that situation was. But it's since this is a sports show, I would like to add, it's remarkable to me that these guys pulled together and actually pulled a win out.
Yeah.
But of course, that's the least important thing to really say about the whole situation.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
So, yeah, and pundits better than us, I think, have had a lot to say on that. Bob Costas, a lot of people. So
Yeah.
I don't think we are even qualified to add on
no.
top of that. The next game up is Raiders versus the Browns, and this is actually a rare case. I think this is only the second time this year that you and I have disagreed on a pick, at least as far as who's going to win. So I had the Raiders winning. You had the Browns winning. You had the Browns winning 27-23. I had Oakland winning 23-16, and it turned out that the Browns did win 20-17. So no for me, and a yes for you, which I think puts you a little bit ahead on the curve now.
go figure.
Next game is Chargers versus the Bengals, and we actually both picked these pretty close. I had Bengals 34-13. You
Right.
had them 31-17. And unfortunately, the score for us was 13-10. So both teams definitely didn't score as many points, but we did get the winners right. So that gets us a meh and a meh. That's our mess for this week. And for us, the important game, the Broncos versus the Buccaneers. You had picked 34-23. I had picked 34-24, and the final actually was 31-23 with the Broncos winning. So you and I were really close on that one. So a definite yes. And a definite yes. And it was funny how basically the last quarter of that game, it all came together for us for our pick.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure I necessarily wanted the kind of convergence that it took to get our scores so damn close to what they ended up being. But
to be quick on this one, because we want to get right into the playoffs, Denver, stop throwing the easy one pick every game.
Right.
You got to stop doing that. Hold on to the football. And learn how to defend the screen pass. If you can just get those elements together, will we be a lot better in the stretch?
And Tampa, what happened in the last half of the game? You completely abdicated the center of the field. Between the numbers, the Broncos could do no wrong. They ate your lunch. And I really honestly expected a better performance out of you guys.
Yeah, they played hard for a half, and I think we pulled away from them.
Right. All right, so as we mentioned at the opening, we're going to change up the format a bit. We're going to actually focus on the larger and more interesting story of the entire playoffs, basically the top 6 seeds, and continue to work the implications of the wins and losses. And boy, there have been in just 1 week a lot of interesting changes that have happened.
And the reason that we're doing this is because, for all intents and purposes, Denver's locked up the division. Oakland and Kansas City are mathematically eliminated at this point. The only other team in the AFC West that has a chance is the Chargers, and it's one of these, they have to win everything, and everybody else almost certainly has to lose almost everything. So we don't really feel that the AFC West has any interest at all.
Well, now, one of the most interesting things, of course, is how, we've been observing and pundits around the league have been observing how quickly it seems like the playoff picture is gelling. I mean, right now, as it stands, 3 of the playoff slots are already gone on the AFC side. So everybody else in the conference is now playing for just 3 slots.
Yep.
On the NFC side, of course, it's, more of a sloppy Sally kind of mess, but still, Atlanta still has, their spot locked up. So, really at this point, I've compiled kind of a list of some questions that are lurking in my mind that I think are going to be answered. And actually, I've started thinking about these next 2 weeks as being like a kind of pre-playoffs, a pre-offs, if you will. Because basically some of the most important games of the entire season, I think, are going to be happening this weekend and next weekend. Absolutely, by far and away, the most interesting game is going to be the Monday night game, in my opinion, of the Houston Texans facing the New England Patriots.
And this really has a lot of implications. Most every game, of course, does at this point, but it has a lot of implications for the AFC. Here's how we laid it out last week, and basically this is the 1 and 2 team going at each other. Right. I think Houston's pretty safe, but New England is still being chased by a lot of teams for that 2 seed, especially including the Broncos. Mm-hmm. So New England has to stay hot. They have to keep winning games.
Right.
So, like you say, this is definitely a pre-off game. New England loses this one, and all of a sudden, because they're in basically a 3-way tie at 9-3 right now with Baltimore and the Broncos. Yeah. All of a sudden, that could shake it up. Also, they could drop right to the 4 seed if other things play out. So,
wouldn't that be funny? and the funny thing is that when we did the show last week, New England was actually in the 3 seed.
That's right.
So, what a difference a week can make. Okay, so with those playoff standings in mind, I've been thinking a lot about how these pre-off games are going to really kind of answer some questions.
We own that, by the way.
Yes, we do.
So
trademark,
game,
copyright,
playoffs, NFL pre-off. That's us.
Pre-off.
We got there first.
That's right. Okay, so I've got some really big questions in mind. First off, are the Texans for real? And my question about the Texans is that through the season, they've had a lot of, big, consistent, gnarly, beautiful wins. But then they got spanked by Green Bay, half a season ago. And then, they've had a couple of these overtime wins, but, squeakers against, weak sister teams. So you got some thoughts about that?
Yeah, Houston's a hard team to read. And if any team can have their record, I think they're like 11-1 right now.
Yeah.
And be kind of nobody's talking about them team. The Texans, kind of funny enough, are that team. They're not getting as much press as I think as say New England's getting with a worse record right now. It's hard to tell with where the Texans are out, but I do believe or where they're at. But I do believe when you can win those close games and you win them consistently, that says something about your team.
Yeah.
And any team can play ugly. I mean, you can look at the Giants. The Giants are the definition of win ugly. When they win ugly. They never. It's a rare day when they can win 31-13. I think the Texans are a bit in that mode. They've kind of gotten that slump mid-season. But yeah, I think they're a legitimate team. Anybody that they face, any of the other teams that will make it into the playoff, they'll get run for their money.
Right. Well, they've got. They've got what I believe to be, the most important game of these pre-offs, these unofficial pre-offs, playing the Pats, and
that could literally be the conference. When they play if the Patriots get the 2 seed, Houston gets the 1 seed. That is in essence, if both teams advance all the way, that's the conference game.
Right.
1 plays 2, last game on the conference. So this is a great chance for both teams to see where they are, and for us to finally kind of be able to measure what are right now statistically the best 2 teams in the league.
Yeah, and they are so evenly matched. I mean, when you look at every major statistical category, I mean they are literally within just a few percentage points of each other. It's crazy. So this is probably the game of the season, actually.
Yeah, I would agree. This is one of these great lucky matchups.
Right. So then related to that are the Patriots for real? And I mean, we're going to learn. The thing about it is that the Patriots, I mean, you've got the mastermind Bill Belichick. You've got the incredible talent of Brady, who can hardly close his fist for all the rings that are decorating his hands. But the other side of it is the game I watched this weekend against Miami. I mean, I thought Miami actually put up some fight. Patriots didn't look good, and it wasn't them just having a bad day. The Miami helped them to have a bad day.
I agree. Yeah, but they still managed to win it. They played ugly. They made a lot of mistakes, and yet they still managed to make the drives they had to make, and they won it. And again, that's in the NFL, it's a game of inches.
Yeah,
and they consistently convert their inches. The Patriots have 2 hard games left.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think they got 2 games that are very winnable, and 2 games that I think they'll be contended. So in a row for them actually. So the San Francisco game after this. So both this weekend and then the San Francisco game. Where are the Patriots at? I think we'll know by that point for sure.
Absolutely. The next big question is, are the Broncos for real? And really, this is a 2-part thing. One is, are they for real in being able to maintain their play standards against a team who's in a game that's absolutely meaningless to them now against Oakland?
Division meaningless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's meaningful in the sense that all the wins losses influence their seeding ultimately in the AFC. But then, of course, Baltimore in Week 15 next week. So, are they for real?
I don't think anybody knows. I don't think the Broncos know. That's the truth of the matter. They had the toughest schedule in the first quarter of the season,
right,
statistically, and they had the easiest schedule since.
Right.
So, and they lost early.
Right.
But again, we've talked about this episode after episode. You take the Broncos now and you stick them on the field. Back in week 1 or 2, who knows what results you get.
Exactly.
I don't think we know this week either.
Yeah.
They could lose 40-0 against Oakland, and it could mean nothing as far as their playoff hopes. They still get the 4 seed. They work their way into the playoffs. It's a whole new season once you're there. But I think that the key is still 2 weeks away for them. The Baltimore game. Since Baltimore lost against the Steelers last week, all of a sudden that's a key game. The person who wins that game, the team that wins that game, I think seeds past the other team. They both have about the same difficulty of remaining games. So the winner of that game is probably the 3, and with luck, maybe the 2.
And actually, that's the final major question that I really have for the AFC. I mean, the Ravens losing to a depleted and very wobbly Pittsburgh raises some real questions about whether or not they deserve anything better than a 4th seed in these playoffs.
Ever since they lost Ray Lewis, they certainly haven't been the same team, but on both sides of the ball. Ray Lewis only plays defense. He's a linebacker.
Right.
Right. He doesn't play quarterback or tight end. He doesn't drop balls or overthrow passes, or guard the quarterback. So I don't know what's going on with the Ravens. Suggs is hurt. He's going to try to play through it. Ray Lewis, there's some discussion about when they want to slot him back in.
Right.
And
of course, Flacco. I mean, who knows what you're going to get any Sunday.
So this week, Baltimore plays the Redskins.
Right.
And both teams need wins to stay in contention. Either team loses, it reseeds everybody. Washington, I think, is the hungrier team right now. I think they've all of a sudden found themselves. Like the Giants, they're winning ugly. But they do manage to ratchet out wins. They have a very inventive offense, kind of a hybrid college/pro offense. Right now, it's confusing the league. But Baltimore, I think, has a chance to prove themselves on the defensive side of the ball this weekend. But I don't think we're going to know where they are as a complete team until, again,
they face the Broncos.
Until they face the Broncos, because that really does seed everything going downrange. So who knows?
Well, I have to say, I despite the fact that Pittsburgh won against the Ravens, and I still think that the Ravens are the superior team, to Pittsburgh. I really am pretty dim on Pittsburgh and its role in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
I mean, it still technically ranks in there, but yeah.
So, last week we were talking about, I think, 8 teams in the AFC that we felt still had a legitimate, shot at making its way into the postseason. But based on how things shook out, last week, I think we're down to 7. I think the Bengals are kind of that team that we've been talking about, ever since that Broncos game. They've been just playing their hearts out, winning games. And they have worked their way right now into the 7th seed, and they're tied with the 6th seed, Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is having some problems right now.
Right.
So... But that's it. Out of the 16 teams in the AFC, there were only 7 that have any chance at all. The Jets, those other teams, barring some, those teams don't have any control over their destiny. No matter how well they do till the end of the season, they have to depend on lots of other teams losing lots of games and interesting combinations for them to even be able to slot in.
Right.
So I just don't really think there's much else to talk about.
Well, switching gears here over to the NFC, which is, of course, still the most muddled situation. So, here's what we said about it last week.
And you and I are pretty close. I think we just had Green Bay and Chicago flipped over.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I think Green Bay actually win in the division at this point.
And the Bears losing. I had the other way around.
And hey, pat myself on the back. Right now, the actual real standings have Green Bay.
Are we going to whip out the cheering crowd? Look at that. Oh, they're cheering for them. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
That's only the second time this season we whipped out the cheering crowd.
Yes. Okay, so my biggest question actually right now is, because the NFC is such a muddle, the only team that kind of stands out from the muddle are the Falcons. But the Falcons this year have had one ugly, tight game after another, and I just have these unsettled doubts about them. And so, are they for real? Are these damn Falcons for real? I don't know.
The NFC has been a lot harder fought this year for interconference games, interdivision games. It's hard to tell. You look at them, hey, they're 11-1 record. Did they earn it? They absolutely did earn it. They you can't say, oh yeah, we got lucky in this game. I think they've clearly earned every win they got. I don't think they are a team that people are going, oh, they're the Super Bowl favorites. I don't think the Vegas bookies are lining up huge odds right now. I think they've clearly earned their playoff spot. I think they've clearly earned their bye, but I'm not 100% sure that they're going to go very deep in the playoffs. They're like the Broncos for me right now. I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, in theory, I don't care about Cam Newton, but they should stomp on Carolina this weekend.
Yes.
Regardless of what Cam Newton tries to do.
Regardless, yes.
I mean, it should be like a 45-14 blowout, but it won't be.
True. I mean, yeah, it'll be pretty close. I agree that they have a tendency to let teams hang around.
Yeah.
That's not a great sign. That's not a dominating team. So I think for the Falcons, the big game for them is when they host the Giants in 2 weeks. Because the Giants, as ugly as a team as they are, I think right now they're Super Bowl champions until somebody beats them.
Right.
Until they lose out of the season. And they have played tough for the most part. So you go to you bring the Giants in your house, and if when the playoffs are on the line, they're fighting for a playoff spot too. If they beat the Giants up convincingly, then I've got more faith in the Falcons. If it's another ugly Giants game and the Falcons barely manage to win or lose, then I don't know. It just means there's a lot of parity in the NFC, and no matter where you slot in, any team can knock off any other team, and who knows. So I don't really see the Falcons being, this incredible team that's guaranteed to go deep.
Well, I will say this. In the spirit of, the kind of pre-offs theme here, I think that if the Falcons managed to lose this game to Carolina, it would raise enormous red flags for me, because that really says a lot about their mental state, not being prepared to play every Sunday regardless of their opponent.
Right.
Which, of course, is the kind of mental state they're going to need to get through the playoffs. Anyway, enough said about them. I just feel like that 11-1 record is living the lie.
Sometimes you get reasonably easy schedules in a week conference or a division, and off you go.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the next big question, of course, and this really wasn't even a question until recently, is the 49ers. I mean, talk about making life more difficult for no real good reason.
I agree.
Are they for real now? Can we regard them as being for real with this quarterback controversy?
Yeah, it's a completely internally generated for no reason whatsoever that anybody else can seem to figure out. Jim Harbaugh, whatever. Harbaugh. Mess.
Right.
I'm not sure why this has happened, but you take a team that's working as a unit, you get a quarterback in to replace the guy that's hurt who does just as good of a job. That's great. You've got a deep bench when it comes to the quarterback position. You stick Alex Smith right back on the field and you go to work.
Right.
The can of worms that he has opened up, and he's got to know this as a head coach, is now there is a gap in trust between the players and the coaching staff. Any player playing for the San Francisco 49ers knows that he can be yanked after an injury, not by somebody who's playing that much better than him.
Right.
Some unknown guy who steps into the position and all of a sudden, hey, wow, he's a superstar.
Right.
But just replace by anybody who plays as well as him.
Right.
What's going to happen? Players are going to play hurt. They're going to play injured. And that's going to make things worse. So as long as the 49ers keep winning, I don't think this quarterback thing hurts them. But the second inside of a game or after a game where things go wrong, they lose bad, or the score is going against them inside of a game, I think we'll see the 49ers they'll fly apart.
Well, I have to say, at this point, I think that Jim Harbaugh has created such bad juju over this that I really would like to see them get punished for what is in this time when we're so concerned about all these people who are suffering repetitive head injuries, profound concussions, and the fact that the only thing that Smith did was get injured to lose his starting position. This is just stinking to high heaven, and I really think that it creates some doubts about whether or not they're a contender team. Nothing against Kaepernick either. I mean, he's obviously a good player, but I mean, I've heard nothing out of the 49ers organization that says that Kaepernick is that much better than Alex Smith, and I can think of a third of the teams in the league would sell their firstborn child to get a quarterback of Smith's quality to be their starter.
Absolutely, yeah.
So this is...
It's a mess, and we, like you, I mean, I don't want everyone to see. I mean, San Francisco, the 49ers are an organization with a pretty proud history. They've won their fair share of Super Bowls. But this is just, this is a rotten decision. I think it hurts the league as a whole.
Yeah.
The rule is, and it's been said over and over and over again, by players and coaches, is you don't lose your starting position to injury.
Yeah.
And there's an incentive in that. Hey, if you're hurt, get off the field.
Right.
Get better, then come back. Your job will be here waiting for you. And a coach that doesn't respect that, I think, is going to cause problems. If, the first time he has a bad season, and like we know, you and I talked off show about this, but when you sow the seeds of distrust, and the organization starts falling apart, you hear it year after year after year. Hey, the coach lost the team.
Right.
The players aren't playing for the coach anymore. He has set himself up for that. The players now know officially that Jim cares nothing about his players at all.
Right.
That they're just pieces of meat to be slotted on the field in the X and O spots to do their job. And there are coaches that have coached in the past. We have coaches in the league right now that are pretty famous for that. And he joins their ranks, and that's unfortunate.
So I think that now with the 49ers and, you know, the mired in their situation, I think it opens the door for the legitimate question, are the Packers not just potentially going to take their division, but could they be number 2 seed material?
It's possible. You don't want to talk about a team that's played inconsistent? That's the Packers. You just don't know who's going to show up. You know, they have been good the last few years. They've made their playoff run. They've made their Super Bowl run.
Aaron Rodgers is clearly an elite quarterback.
He is definitely the real deal. But they, you know, just week to week, you just don't know what they're going to get out of it. I would not be stunned if we got to week 18 and they weren't even in the playoff hunt. That's how unsure I'm about the Packers. I don't know what they're going to do. You know, you look downrange on their schedule, and they've got 2 tough games left, both for division games. So where they sit, I think, is how well they respond inside their division at this point.
Right.
Where they go in the playoffs, like the rest of the NFC, I have no clue.
Well, and then that brings up the related question: are the Bears for real? The Bears are looking a bit depleted right now. You have Jay Cutler coming back, you know, from concussion, and you know he's starting to get up to Steve Young territory with a number of concussions he's had. You know, are they for real? I feel like they're wobbling here towards the end.
Yeah, they took a really tough loss this Sunday, and Brian Urlacher may be out next week.
Yeah,
and he may be out 2 to 3 weeks. So right when they've got to toughen up, you know, play a hard interdivision schedule. Also, they've got a tough road just to stay in the playoffs, much less seeded at all.
I agree. And
so I don't know. You know, how healthy is Jay Cutler? How many more times can he get hammered into the turf before he needs to get away from the game?
Well, the thing about it too is that, you know, the Vikings, from what I've seen this year, have been playing a kind of old school, you know, grindy.
Adrian Peterson, and let's hand it to Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's been their game.
Sure.
But they've also played pretty, you know, tough on defense too. Not consistently, but tough. And so that's their next game. And in the spirit of these, you know, pre-offs, I really see, you know, there being some tea leaf reading, some legitimate tea leaf reading that could be done from an old school, grindy, you know, run left, run right, run center kind of game with the Vikes.
Yeah, you know, the whole NFC North, the 3 teams that are in contention
right.
in the NFC North, their fates could change completely. You know, I believe that 2 of those teams advance if they play well, but you know who the division winner is going to be, you know, and is anybody left healthy enough to be competitive in the NFC North? No.
Exactly.
But I do know that the 3 teams that are competitive have to play each other a total of 6 games out of you know, basically each one of those teams has to play division teams twice,
right,
to get out of the division before the end of the season. You know, the competitive teams. That's tough. Yeah. But whoever survives the NFC North will deserve their spot.
Survive is right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, another question that I think we might learn something about is, do the Giants even deserve a playoff berth? And that's a funny way for me to put it. But, you know, for being Super Bowl champions, the inconsistency of their performance this year has been notable.
Yes.
So, do they even deserve a playoff spot?
Somebody's got to make it from the NFC East. That's after we reseeded the divisions and conferences. That's the rule. Do they deserve it? Not really. Not the way they played to date. You know, they've traditionally they've been winning ugly, which is what they do. But they've, you know, I'm not sure about the Giants either. Here again, another mystery NFC team. Somebody has to make it, of course.
Right.
But they have not played consistently enough. There's some bright spots. They play, you know, they don't turn over the ball a ton. They're a low penalty team, excepting the Washington game, which might be the exception to the rule. But the NFC East has not looked like a proud division this year.
No, it hasn't.
And they have not. This should be an opportunity for a good team to step away, like the Broncos have in the AFC West. The Giants, if they're that good, should have stepped away from the rest of the NFC East.
Well, they have got to be feeling the hot, bated breath of the Washington Redskins on the back of their neck.
Yes.
because there is the potential for Washington. I mean, if the wheels completely come off the bus for the Giants and everything goes right for Washington, there's a chance for a real reversal of fortune there.
Absolutely. Washington beat them.
Yeah.
So then they split that. So yeah. So Washington's hot and the Giants are. I think it's the easiest way to say what's going on in the NFC East. The rest of the NFC East teams, Philadelphia is the worst team in the NFC, arguably the second worst team in the league. The Dallas is just.
I know. I mean, watching that poor game against the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, it wasn't so much that somebody won that game; it's that someone didn't lose that game.
Yeah. Yes, it's just like the NFC East. Somebody had to win it.
Yeah.
Right. So Dallas just kind of fell backwards across the end zone, and we won, but.
Yes, and Philadelphia Eagles running back, I'm sorry I don't remember your name right now, but dude, you have got to do better controlling that ball. I can see talent oozing out of your pores. You are an amazing running back, but you got to carry it close to your body, dude. You're killing yourself. Yes, look at that. See the tuck? Keep the tip of the ball all covered up. That's the way you do it. See, even we out here, we fat middle-aged guys. Yes. No, we are fat. Not okay. All right. So the next, or actually, I think the second to last big question I have about the NFC is these Seahawks. Are they for real? I mean, I can't even name a single person on that team right now.
Yeah. No, I can't either. I mean, we didn't even talk about them last week. Somehow we didn't see them coming, and they won that game. And that changed 3 team seedings. That moved the Green Bay up, the Bears down, put the Seahawks in. So Seattle really does have a legitimate chance to make it to the 2 seed. It's a weird thing to say about a 7-5 team, but the only tough team they've got left to play is San Francisco, which does hold a 2 seed. Right. Who knows where San Francisco is going to be in 3 weeks, given all the problems that they're all of a sudden this weird quarterback thing that they're having. The 3 seed right now is Green Bay. They're in the NFC North, and it's a dogfight right now.
Right.
You got the Vikings, you got the Bears, and you got Green Bay all going at each other.
Right.
And if they fight hard and they kind of split those games out, they'll all kind of drive each other down the seeding. Mm-hmm. And leave room for Seattle to go from somebody we didn't even talk about to sitting at home on the first round bye. Talking about a team that nobody is talking about. I'm hard pressed to name even 2 players on their team right now.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's great. And funny enough, after that Bears game, I don't want to say they're for real, but I saw them play one other game this season. They played pretty hard. Mm-hmm. So they're a team, actually, if they do manage to make their way in, and right now they're seeded 5th, they're kind of one of the few teams I'm comfortable with saying they might advance past the first round.
It really is even doubly surprising for me because I haven't even really thought much about the Seahawks since they left the Broncos division with the realignment.
Right.
Back, a decade ago, 15 years ago, something like that?
Houston came on board, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's how bad they've been for that long. So, I don't know. Bizarro world, but you know what? That's what makes these playoffs so much fun.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say that this is only week 14.
Right.
There are 4 games left to play. A full quarter of the season is still on the board to be won or lost. I mean, anybody, with the exception, I think, of 2 teams right now, could still technically make it in the playoffs.
Right.
And ironically enough, the 2 teams that are eliminated are in the Broncos division. But I have no idea where I was going to go with that, except it's exciting. It's really exciting.
Well, now that I know that you went for the F-bomb, I know that's not going into it. All right. Okay, so my final question of these playoffs is RG3 for real? I'm not even saying Washington, because you know what? I really see this as a case of RG3 living up to his hype and actually raising up what is otherwise a fairly mediocre team. I think that this guy is. I mean, he is, and I say RG3 because he is an exceptional player who, at this point, seems to be living up to all the hype. Who is situated on an otherwise fairly mediocre team.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be unfair. I mean, there are plenty of bright spots, plenty of things that can be built on, and for the future. But the thing about it is, RG3 has been obviously the critical difference. I mean, the Washington Redskins last year, yeah, I
Sure.
mean, they were Arizona Cardinals quality.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree completely. I think all credit to the Shanahans, who took a quarterback who can obviously run the football.
Right.
And they've got some strong tailbacks. And they said, hey, what can we do with this? And they've got this kind of weird hybrid college professional system that is the center of the Wildcat, really, at its heart. So, but RG3 makes that work because, yes, he can run with the football, but man, there's a lot of highlights this year of him getting murdered for trying it. That really famous sideline hit that he took that knocked him right out. That basically didn't know where he was for a couple days. So, the Redskins, I got a couple of questions. One, yes, they're running some interesting formations, but they've been running that all year long. And that's great. And that's been working for them. But what happens when they meet a Belichick?
It's funny. That's the first thing that I thought is if they managed in a Super Bowl game, say,
Right.
Pats and Skins.
Sure.
I would really see Belichick murdering them, exposing, every possible flaw.
Exactly. I think they've had the benefit of a soft schedule and a soft division. And they've gone pretty far with it. Are they for real? They're definitely hungry.
Yes.
And they've got the momentum thing right now. It's a little bit of an intangible, but they believe in themselves. And in football, that counts for a lot. They're playing as a unit and not as a bunch of individuals.
Well, we will definitely see what we see with RG3. But in terms of the immediate playoffs, I think that this weekend is for Washington and the Ravens is part of this whole pre-offs narrative here.
I agree.
I think that we're going to really see whether or not Washington is as hungry as we think they ought to be, and whether or not the Ravens can bounce back from a really unfortunate loss.
Yes. On the NFC side, I see basically 12 teams at this point being competitive.
Okay.
For the most part, controlling their own destiny. The ones we haven't spent a lot of time talking about is Dallas, Tampa. We did talk about the Vikes, the Rams, and the Saints. Dallas, they're just not a very good team this year. They're consistently not very good.
Yeah.
Until the owner fires a general manager, happens to be the same person. I think Dallas is stuck. I don't think they're going to go anywhere for quite some time. Tampa, they've started playing hard, but the Broncos game, I think that really just puts them too far back now to make a legitimate run. You can still play ball with the Rams. Of all the teams that are still in contention, I have this little nifty little spreadsheet I did, basically where I said these should be winnable games for teams. These games should be contested, and these games they'll probably lose. The only place for the AFC and the NFC that I have teams losing games is the Rams, losing 3 out of their next 4. This is that little red series of boxes there. I think they stink. I don't even know how they've managed to get any wins at all. And the Saints, I just think that first quarter of the season doomed them. They just got too far to go. They've got the Giants, the Bucks, and Dallas right in a row. All 3 of those are contestable games. And, they got Carolina to finish the season. I mean, the best they can potentially do is 9-7, and I think the top 6 seeds would be past that.
Yeah.
So
I really put the Rams and Cowboys down kind of at the same level of being contenders. I see the Vikings, Bucks, and New Orleans as being in the kind of same pool of kind of outside challengers possibly. But when it really comes right down to it, I think the Seahawks, the Redskins, and the Vikings are really the strongest contenders. For that 6th seed. And of course, as we talked about with the Seahawks, they could go even further than that. That 6th seed could be occupied by the 49ers, for all we know.
Sure.
So, all right. Well, just to wrap up here, I think that we both agree that not much is really going to change with the AFC. We kind of really with a Patriots loss and a Ravens loss, that would open up things completely for the Broncos to occupy that number 2 seed. So,
So I think we're pretty much on the same page, which we were on last week on the AFC.
Right.
I want the Broncos to win. I want New England to lose and Baltimore to lose, but I'm not really confident in that.
Right.
Given all the way down the stretch. So I think that's pretty clear. The NFC, I think we've changed a little bit. So basically, I think the change that you're making from last week is that you're bumping Washington out of the 6 and
Yes.
putting Seattle in the 6th spot. So on my end, So I'm gonna change my seating actually a great deal, mostly because of that Seattle win. When Seattle beat the Bears, I think that really shook things up. I had no idea that was going to happen. I would not have bet money on that. So I'm gonna change change it up a little bit because of the Seattle win, because of the situation in San Francisco evolving the way it has. I'm going to go with Atlanta at the 1 spot, Seattle at the 2 spot. Okay. So from nobody to the 2 seed. This, of course, by the end of the season. Then the Bears, the Giants, because somebody's got to win the NFC East, and whoever does will have the worst seeding of the division winners. Then San Francisco, and last will be Green Bay. And like you, I've bumped Washington out. I think they've just lost one game too many, and Seattle really threw a monkey wrench into everything for everybody. So,
yeah, no doubt. I mean,
of course, next week I could be calling Dallas, Tampa, Minnesota, St. Louis, Detroit. Who knows? Depending on
I know
how our playoffs go.
Exactly.
So I'm reserving the right to make a change, but I'm saying Seattle's coming on strong, and Washington's coming on strong too. But they may have waited just one game too many to really make an honest run at it. They have to depend on too many other teams to slide in now.
All right.
So, is that it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick pat for now. Although, the chance of Seahawks continuing their Cinderella run and knocking the 49ers out entirely is...
Yeah, they could definitely, the flip the script on that.
Yeah.
All right. So, John.
And Jonathan.
Thank you for watching. Enjoy good football.
All right. See ya.
Bye.